Hey, what is going on, crypto people? Happy freaking Friday. It's Friday evening, as a matter of fact. Listen, Grock AI tells all, gives us the lowdown on the significance or lack thereof of Hidden Roads, or Ripple's acquisition of Hidden Road, RWAs on the XRPL, and storage demand. What is going to be the thing that creates demand for the asset XRP? It was an interesting back and forth. Pay me an XRP. Hope you're well, bro. It was an interesting back and forth. I'm going to go over my conversation. I'm going to share the questions that I asked. I'm going to share its response. And I'm going to share with you guys the actual thread that I'll be posting tomorrow. I posted on my X account kind of a um, summary of Grock AI's thought on our conversation on the acquisition of Hidden Road by Ripple, on RWAs on the XRPL, on dApps, decentralized apps, and whether and what dApps, tokenization on the XRPL. What does this mean? What does it mean? It kind of gave its thoughts on our conversation, um, and it actually I have a thread that I'm going to post tomorrow on just kind of like the whole thing. So I did post on my next page Grok's thoughts. It's interesting, for sure. I'm going to share that again. It's Grok's thoughts on our conversation back and forth, all the things that we talked about. That's what I shared on my X page. But tomorrow I'm going to share the kind of like a thread of my thoughts, his thoughts, my thoughts, his thoughts, kind of his thoughts on my thoughts, if you will. I'll share that tomorrow in a nice thread as well. So the thing I posted earlier today, about 2 hours ago, is kind of his thoughts on what I was thinking. It's not the whole back and forth between Grock and I, uh, which is I'm going to share with you guys tonight. You're going to be the first one to kind of see that thread, um, for sure. So interesting to see Grox agreeing with me on what's necessary and needed to create demand for the asset XRP. It was interesting to see that. Because in the beginning, and I'll share with you, he's referencing a post on X and referencing this post and bringing up all these different posts from people. So I had to go deeper and kind of share more where I was thinking. I don't want to just get, what everyone else is thinking or what Grok think. I want to share what I think and if it makes sense or not. And it's interesting how Grok brought up Ripple and what Ripple is going to need to do in order to create this demand for XRP. Yeah, brought it up. It's yeah, it's interesting. To say the least. I appreciate you guys checking in. Do me a favor, hit the like button. That'd be super, super cool. We always like to have just as many likes as we got viewers in the stream. Yeah, I can't wait to share that with you guys. FLR is kind of killing the game right now. I think there's some people that are on FLR, pay me an XRP. I think they're kind of getting the big picture and the possibility of what's being truly built out. I really do believe that. Hit that like button on the way in. That'd be super, super cool. Grok reveals the necessary components, the tips, the keys. That's the word I'm looking for. Grok reveals the keys to XRP price appreciation, considering the acquisition of Hidden Road, RWAs on the XRPL, dApps coming to the XRPL. Yeah, we had an interesting back and forth about that. Because in the end in the end we want, Metcalfe's law. I brought up network adoption and Metcalfe's law as well. Brought that up as well. Yeah, it's an interesting back and forth. For sure. You're gonna love it. I'm gonna get right into it. The market's doing what the market does. No need to go over the numbers. Bitcoin's around 84,000. XRP's around $2.06. Ethereum's around $1,600. Right? No need to really go over the market. because the market is just doing what the market does. So I'm not going to go over these numbers. Nothing significant to note. Nothing's crashing. It's just kind of, it is just kind of is what it is. I haven't put together, well, I have the final thread that I'm going to post tomorrow in the morning is put together. Um, so I'm just going to share our back and forth conversations and Grock's final thoughts. But let me pull that up because I want you guys to see kind of like my questions and my thoughts and kind of how we got to where we got to. I don't know if you guys have seen the post that I put on X about Grock's thoughts. Let this thing refresh here. My mouse is what's going on with my mouse? It's dead. It's dead. Go here. I'm gonna pull it up first, and then I'll share the screen. I really just want to get right into it. I promised you guys for the last 2 or 3 days that I was going to uh, today. Ready for today's dive? No, right here. I said that I was, I had some thoughts. I was thinking about BlackRock tokenization of everything. Is this it? Nope, that's not it. What's going on right now? Today. I said I had some thoughts because I was trying to wrap my brain around, the excitement around Hidden Road and this acquisition, and why Brad Garlinghouse is talking about this is going to be significant for XRP and the XRPL. Why is David Schwartz talking about this is going to be significant for XRP and the XRPL? I share my thoughts on how uninspired I was with Monica Long's interview. Yeah, well, not interview, but part of her interview where she announced, she was kind of the first one to announce it on stage, this acquisition of Hidden Road. And the guy asked her about, you're in reference to Hidden Road, you're talking a lot about the Ripple dollar stable coin. And it seems like you found utility for the Ripple dollar stable coin. But what about XRP? Wasn't XRP supposed to be serving this role? So hopefully Wi-Fi will cooperate here, and hopefully this my mouse, which is completely dead, will come back to life. So let me share that. Look at this. I don't know why in this type of evening it would be delaying, but let me get that. Let me share this. Guys, here it is here. Share. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of everything else that's on X. Well, try to get rid of everything on X and maybe that'll help a little bit. Hmm. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to get rid of all of this stuff here. And the only thing I'm going to keep up is Dan Tapiero, reminder of the bigger picture, the macro in this space. It's important. What's going on, Pookie Pookie? What up, though? All right, so let me share this. Guys, do me a favor, hit that like button. So Grock, my thoughts on Ripple's acquisition of, it's my and Grock's back and forth on the significance or lack thereof of Ripple's acquisition of Hidden Road, RWAs on the XRPL, Metcalfe's law, and ultimately, how do we create demand, or does the acquisition of Hidden Road, lead to some type of demand for XRP. All right, let's see. I'm going to share this from the beginning. Kind of like, and because I was kind of thinking out loud while I was talking with Grock. It's interesting the conversations that you can have. It really is. It really is. So my first thing or question or to Grock was first I just said, hey Grock, and he said, yo, what's good? Are you ready to dive in? Ready to dive into whatever you're pondering about today? Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I said, hey Grock, and Grock said, yo, what's good? Ready to dive into whatever you're pondering about today. Isn't that interesting? Absolutely. Are you familiar, says Crypto Siege, are you familiar with the prime broker Hidden Road? Grok says, yes, I'm familiar with Hidden Road. They're a global credit network for institutional investors offering prime brokerage, blah, 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 blah. They clear over 3 trillion annually for 300 plus institutional clients, including hedge funds and banks, and have integration with major exchanges like Coinbase, OKX, and Deribit. Didn't know about that. I think someone may have mentioned that. Rick Cisneros would love this back and forth. Grock goes on to say recently Ripple acquired them for 1.25 billion to bolster their institutional crypto infrastructure, integrating Ripple's dollar stablecoin and XRP ledger for collateral and settlement. Grock asked me anything specific you want to dive into about them. I said, correct. So I have been struggling with this acquisition. I have been struggling with how this acquisition would facilitate the demand of the native asset of the XRPL. I can't come up with anything. I don't buy the volume of one company, which does 3 trillion annually, equates to demand for XRP. I say, am I thinking correctly or am I missing something? Grock says you're raising a valid point and your skepticism about the direct impact of Ripple's $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road on XRP demand is worth unpacking. The connection between Hidden Road's 3 trillion annual clearing volume and increased demand for XRP isn't automatic. And you're right to question whether the volume alone translates to meaningful demand for the native asset of the XRPL. Let's break it down and explore whether you're missing something or if your thinking is on the right track, right? Says key points to consider. Hidden Road's role and integration with the XRPL. Hidden Road is a prime broker, we get it. As part of the acquisition, Hidden Road will migrate its post-trade settlement processes to the XRPL and use Ripple dollar stablecoin as collateral, right? For its prime broker's product. We know that. The XRP is designed for fast, low cost. We get that, right? It says moving even a fraction of this to the XRPL could reduce settlement times and costs. However, the use of the XRPL for settlement doesn't inherently mean XRP is required for every transaction. XRPL supports multiple assets, including the Ripple dollar stablecoin, and institutions could settle trades using stablecoins or other tokenized assets without directly using XRP. And then Grock goes on to say how XRP could be involved. Settlement and liquidity. XRP's primary use case is a bridge currency. We get it. Then he's going on, he's quoting some stuff from X, right? For example, Jay Claver, a financial commentator, suggested that even if 10% of Hidden Road's 10 billion daily volume, in other words, 1 billion, settles through the ledger using XRP, it could drive significant demand. This would equate to 300 billion annually, potentially increasing the XRP's transaction demand. Then he talks about tokenized real-world assets. Schwartz noted, says Grock, that the XRPL could become a venue for tokenized RWAs, with XRP potentially used as collateral for the settling of these assets. This could embed XRP into institutional workflows, increasing its utility. It talks about a flywheel effect. Analysts like Rath Economy argue that more liquidity on the XRPL, driven by Hidden Roads integration, could make XRP more useful, creating a flywheel. Now, stay with me because there's a big time thing at the end that is significant, right? The flywheel effect, where increased adoption drives further demand. XRP's role in bridging liquidity across walled gardens, e.g. or i.e. different financial systems, could make it essential for institutional settlement, right? These are a lot of shoulds or coulds. Why volume might not equal XRP demand, says Grock. Stablecoin dominance. Hidden Roads integration of the Ripple dollar stablecoin as collateral suggests that the stablecoin, not XRP, may handle much of the collateral and margin requirements for trades. Institutions often prefer stable assets like the Ripple dollar for risk management, reducing the need for volatile quote unquote assets like XRP on their balance sheet. Then you got limited XRP utility. Not all the XRP transactions require XRP. Not all XRPL transactions require XRP. If Hidden Road primarily uses XRPL for the Ripple dollar-based Ripple-based settlements, so stablecoin-based settlements or other tokenized assets, XRP's role could be minimal unless explicitly integrated into the workflows. And so my thought there is, well, Ripple now owns the thing, right? So then here's an interesting thing that I never thought of. Grock brings up velocity problem. Says even if XRP is used for settlements, its price impact depends on velocity. And he's got in parentheses here, how quickly XRP changes hands. High velocity, e.g., XRP used and sold immediately, could suppress price growth despite high transaction volume. Grock's analysis suggests that if XRPL handles all 3 trillion of Hidden Roads volume, XRP price could reach $5.71. That's for all 3 trillion. Or it says, or 28.55 with a speculative multiplier in parentheses, or $28.55 with a speculative multiplier. Important to note. But this assumes low velocity and full adoption. Low velocity and full adoption, which is unlikely in the near term. Then it's got the private versus the public ledger. There's uncertainty about whether a Hidden Road will use the public XRPL or a private version. If a private ledger is used, it could limit XRP's adoption, as the native asset utility is tied to the public XRPL. Now he goes over something that I talked about. It says, your concern, does volume equate to demand? Now, before I go on with that, let me welcome some more people to the stream. Pookie says, that is interesting, right? So, guys, do me a favor, hit that like button on the way, and do me a favor and check in. Would you check in? Let me know that you're here. Are you loving the back and forth so far with me and Grock? If you are, do me a favor and give a thumbs up in the chat. I know you may be a little bit shy about saying something, but if you could give a thumbs up in the chat to let me know that you guys are here, that would be really, really cool. And please hit that like button. It is one of the best ways to support the channel for sure. So let me get back, Pookie, to the rest of this back and forth with Grock. It says, your concerns. It says, does volume equate to demand? And Pookie, you know, you've been here. You know, I've been saying, I'm not getting this Hidden Road and how this, and I posted it on Brad Garlinghouse post and on David Schwartz post about this volume doesn't necessarily equate to demand. Grock says you're correct. That Hidden Road's 3 trillion annual, and please stay with me. This is a long back and forth, and it comes to a very promising end if all conditions are met. So stay with me. Grock says you're correct. That Hidden Road's 3 trillion annual volume doesn't directly translate to XRP demand. The volume represents the total volume of trades cleared, but only a small fraction, if any, may involve XRP. For demand to materialize, XRP must be actively used in transactions held by institutions or required for specific functions, i.e., liquidity provision. The $3 trillion figure is a potential ceiling, not a guarantee. Analysts like Jake Claver, and Schwartz emphasize, quote unquote, a fraction of this volume moving to the XRPL. But even 1%, 30 billion annually, could be significant if XRP is integral. However, without clear data on how much volume will involve XRP, as opposed to the Ripple dollar, the impact remains speculative. Market psychology also matters. Despite the acquisition, XRP's price dropped 3% to $1.80 shortly after. You got the trade war, you got the broader market volatility, blah, 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 right? Grock says what you might be missing. Okay, I'm all ears. What might I be missing? And Grock says institutional adoption. The acquisition positions Ripple as a major player in institutional finance, potentially exposing 300 plus clients to XRP's use cases. If hedge funds or market makers start using, and this is, Rick would love this because I believe Rick brought this up in the chat. Rick Cisneros, friend of the channel. It says, Grock says, if hedge funds or market makers start using XRP for liquidity or settlement, even in niche scenarios, it could create steady demand. Ripple's reputational boost as a VIP backdoor to Wall Street, quote unquote, a VIP backdoor to Wall Street, interesting, could also attract more institutional interest. Another thing that Grock thought I might be missing, network effects. Hidden rows integration with exchanges like Coinbase and OKX. OKX means the XRPL could become a preferred settlement layer for digital assets. Right? It says, so that's a sneaky thing right there, right? Because the Hidden Road has an integration into Coinbase Exchange and into OKX. Ripple now owns Hidden Road. You see that? So, Hidden Road's integration with exchanges like Coinbase and OKX means the XRPL could become a preferred settlement layer for digital assets. If XRP is used to bridge liquidity across these platforms, its utility could grow organically. So what do you think? What say you? Ripple now owns Hidden Road. What do you think the likelihood of the XRPL becoming the preferred settlement layer for digital assets on those exchanges? If XRP is used to bridge liquidity across these platforms, its utility could grow organically. Another thing that Grock thought I might be missing, regulatory tailwinds. The acquisition coincides with a more favorable U.S. regulatory environment, i.e. Trump's crypto-friendly stance and Ripple's SEC lawsuit resolution. This could encourage institutions to adopt XRP, amplifying the acquisition's impact. Long-term vision. Ripple's strategy isn't just about immediate XRP demand, but about building infrastructure where XRP becomes indispensable. This is from Grock. Grock is saying Ripple's strategy isn't just about immediate XRP demand, but about building infrastructure where XRP becomes indispensable. By embedding XRPL, the XRPL, in Hidden Road's $3 trillion pipeline, Ripple is laying the groundwork for future use cases, i.e., tokenized RWAs, cross-border payments, which could demand, which could drive demand over time. So Grock says, are you thinking correctly? You're largely on the right track. The 3 trillion volume is a headline figure, but its impact on XRP demand depends on execution, specifically how much of Hidden Road's activity uses XRP rather than the Ripple dollar stablecoin or other assets. Your skepticism about the direct correlation is justified as the acquisition benefits for XRP are speculative and hinge on 3 things here. The percentage of volume settled via XRP, in parentheses, it says likely a small fraction initially, whether XRP is used for liquidity or bridging rather than the Ripple dollar for collateral. The velocity of XRP transactions and market dynamics. All right, it says here, however, you might be underestimating the long-term potential. While the immediate demand boost may be limited, the acquisition could create a structural shift by embedding XRP in institutional workflows. If Ripple successfully integrates XRP into even 1 to 10% of Hidden Road's volume, the demand could be significant, especially with institutional players who move large sums. For context, $300 billion in annual XRP transactions could push XRP's price to $5 to $10 in optimistic scenarios, though this assumes low velocity and strong adoption. High velocity is, XRP is in and out. That's why, remember that was the Ripple was saying, you don't have to worry about volatility. It's in and out. XRP's there, boom, boom. Well, in terms of price appreciation, that's not a good thing, right? That's what they call high velocity. So Grock is saying could push XRP's price to $5 to $10 in an optimistic scenario, though this assumes the opposite. It assumes low velocity and strong adoption. So I'm reading this. Okay. I'm just going through my thoughts for my next question. Critical perspective, says Grock. It's worth noting that much of the hype around XRP demand comes from Ripple's messaging and community commentators who have incentives to promote bullish narratives. The actual impact may be less dramatic, especially if the Ripple dollar overshadows XRP or if institutions stick to private ledgers. Additionally, XRP's price has underperformed despite the news. And that's important to understand. But that's been the space lately. It's the whole space, whether it be Solana or Sui launching Walrus, or, right? Solana, what's this new thing? Jupiter with liquid staking with the Jupe token in Solana ecosystem. Like the news is not mattering. Have you been noticing that? It's not just with XRP, it's with all the assets. So XRP's price has underperformed despite the news, suggesting markets aren't yet convinced of immediate demand. Conclusion: You're not missing anything major, but now, this is not the conclusion because I ask more questions. It's just the conclusion of my initial thoughts here. Okay, so please stay tuned. So it's conclusion: You're not missing anything major, but the acquisition's impact on XRP demand isn't binary. It's a spectrum. The 3 trillion volume doesn't. Hold on a second, guys. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. It was a little miss crypto seeds there. All right, so I read that. You're not missing anything major, but the acquisition's impact on XRP demand is not binary. It's a spectrum. The 3 trillion volume doesn't directly equate to XRP demand, but even a small slice of it, 1 to 10%, could drive meaningful utility if XRP is used for settlement or liquidity. The real question, again, this is not the conclusion of our back and forth. This is the conclusion of my initial thoughts here. Okay, just want you to understand. Stay tuned. This is what Grock says. The real question is how Ripple prioritizes XRP versus the Ripple dollar stablecoin. And whether institutions embrace XRP for specific use cases. Short term, the effect may be muted due to market volatility and uncertainty about implementation. Long term, the acquisition could be a game changer if Ripple leverages Hidden Road's client base to embed XRP in institutional finance. Keep an eye. Now, a lot of people are going to suggest that's going to be a given, that Ripple is going to do that. What I've heard from Ripple is whatever works best, this is what we're going to do. Whatever works best. This is kind of just how we're going to do it. Whatever works, whatever the client and whatever works best in certain scenario. That's all I'm getting from Ripple. Again, I said I was uninspired by Monica Long's little talk there. Because I thought to myself, you've already come up with a use case for the Ripple dollar, which has been around significantly less than XRP. And you've already come up with a use case, but you just can't seem to come up with a use case for XRP. Meaningful use case. So anyway, it goes on to say, keep an eye on how much of Hidden Road's volume actually flows through XRP. It's the key variable. And then it says here, if you want, I can dig deeper into specific scenarios. So for example, modeling potential XRP demand based on volume percentage, I didn't do that. I said, got it. This is what I said. I said, so I believe Metcalfe's law applies to blockchains like the XRPL. Here's what I'm currently thinking. The XRPL is well positioned for RWAs and tokenization. Is it feasible that RWA dApps that launch on the XRPL, let's say like tokenized gold dApps or other useful RWA dApps, could create demand for XRP? Again, is it feasible that RWA dApps that launch on the XRPL, let's say like tokenized gold dApps and other useful RWA dApps, could create demand for XRP? Any thoughts? This is what Grock says. You're spot on to bring up Metcalfe's law in the context of the XRPL and its potential for tokenized real-world assets. The idea that the value of a network grows exponentially with the number of its users, parentheses, or nodes, applies well to blockchains like the XRPL, especially as it aims to become a hub for institutional DeFi and RWA tokenization. Your hypotheses that RWA dApps like tokenized gold or other useful RWA dApps launching on the XRPL could drive demand for XRPL or for XRP is feasible and worth exploring. Let's dive into how this could work, whether it's realistic, and what factors might influence XRP demand. It talks about Metcalfe's law suggests that a network's value is proportional to the square of its users. For XRPL. For XRPL's user nodes, this includes institutions, dApps developers, and users interacting with the ledger. Network value. For the XRPL, this translates to increased transaction volume, liquidity, and utility which could boost demand for XRP as a native asset. As more dApps, like tokenized gold, launch and attract users, as more dApps launch and attract users, because I made the argument that it's not going to be institutions. As more dApps launch and attract users, the XRPL's network grows, potentially creating a feedback loop where increased adoption drives more value and demand for XRP. Talks about the XRPL's strength. Fast settlement, 3 to 5 seconds, low fees, 0.0002 per transaction, for crying out loud. And scalability to 1,500 TPFs with potential for more by way of sidechains. Make it well suited for RWAs where efficiency and costs matter. Ripple's acquisition of Hidden Road with its $3 trillion annual clearing volume and 300 plus institutional clients further positions the XRPL as a potential backbone for tokenized assets, as it could integrate RWAs into institutional workflows. Again, my guy Rick he's probably jumping up and down, screaming from the rooftop, because these are some of the things that he suggested, right? As a potential backbone for tokenized assets, as it could integrate RWAs into institutional workflows. Feasibility, says Grock. Could the RWA dApps drive XRP demand? Grock says, yes, it's feasible that the RWA dApps launching on the XRPL could create demand for XRP, but the extent depends on several factors. Let's break it down. RWA dApps tokenize assets like gold, real estate, or commodities, allowing them to be traded, fractionalized, or used as collateral on a blockchain. Here's how they could increase XRP demand. Transaction fees. Every transaction in XRPL requires a small amount of XRP to pay fees. If a tokenized gold dApp gains tractions with millions of transactions, the cumulative demand for XRP could cover fees. To cover fees could be significant. I'm thinking of Glint Pay and what is Glint Pay going to do? Why is Glint Pay and Andy Schectum hooking up? What is that going to be about? Paul Barron is moderating a panel. What is that all about? I do find it interesting. In the last 90 days or so, I find Paul Barron from the Paul Barron Network, he keeps bringing up XRP. He's been doing a lot of stuff about XRP. I found that to be fascinating. Now it turns out he's going to be moderating some panel. I'd imagine that would be for Ripple, but I'm not sure yet. I don't know if that's going to be for the Gold Coast thing in Australia. I'm not sure. All right, so it says if a tokenized gold dApp gains traction with millions of transactions, the cumulative demand for XRP to cover fees could be significant. And it gives an example. If a dApp processes 1 million transactions daily at the 0.002 per transaction, that's $200 a day in fees. It's not a lot. Over a year, that's 39,000 XRP multiple. Okay, great. Then it says, while fees are burned, users must acquire XRP to interact, creating buy pressure. Liquidity and bridging, we know. XRP's primary use case is a bridge currency for cross-asset or cross-currency transaction. In a tokenized gold dApp, for example, users might trade gold for other assets like the Ripple dollar stablecoin or tokenized stocks. XRP could facilitate these trades by providing liquidity, especially for cross-border or multi-asset swaps. For instance, a user in Europe buys tokenized gold priced in US dollars using euro. XRP could bridge the euro, XRP USD, settling instantly on a ledger, we know. If Hidden Road's clients use XRPL for RWA settlement, XRP could bridge liquidity across exchanges like Coinbase and OKX, increasing its utility. Collateral and DeFi. Some RWA dApps might allow XRP to be used as collateral for loans and margin trading or yield farming, for example. And it goes over the network effects here as well, Metcalfe's law. As more RWA dApps, as more projects, RWA projects launch, tokenized gold, real estate dApp, carbon credits dApp, you name it. More of those launch. XRPL attracts more developers, users, and institutions. This grows the network's value, making XRP more useful. That's what I've been saying. I'm not buying the whole one dApp thing. We need one institution. I think the network adoption is going to come from Glint Pay. I don't know what's the real estate thing Ripple's been working with. There's a real estate play out there. Certainly, there's carbon credits, right? Just one after another, each bringing users, each attracting more users, and creating the network effect, right? So, settling trades across the dApps, providing liquidity for tokenized RWAs. I think that's going to be a big one. Acting as a reserve asset for DeFi protocols. I think it's close to the killer app as you can get. It's not it, but it's close. Acting as a reserve asset for DeFi protocols. For example, if 10 RWA dApps each attract 10,000 users, the network's connection, 100,000 users, could exponentially increase XRPL's utility, driving XRP demand. 10 apps, 10 projects on the ledger in the RWA space. Do we have that? Do we have 10 RWA dApps yet? No. But they could certainly come, especially with programmability on the XRPL, especially. Institutional adoption via Hidden Road. Hidden Road's 300 clients with hedge funds and banks and market makers could interact with the RWA dApps on the XRPL, especially if Ripple integrates the tokenized assets into its settlement pipeline. Any reason why they would not? Is there any reason why they would not? If even 1% of Hidden Road's 3 trillion involves XRP for RWA trades, it could create substantial demand. I don't know if you remember me saying this last night, Pookie, in my live stream yesterday. It might have been early today and certainly yesterday. I'm thinking these 3 things are going through my mind. BlackRock putting the message out to the world, because that's what they do. They signal to the world. Tokenization of everything, right? Ripple says that they want to be the RWA tokenization hub, right? The XRPL moves anything, tokenized gold, tokenized real estate, tokenized whatever. The XRPL moves it in 3 to 5 seconds for 0.0002 of a penny. And how many times have we said on this channel that for you and I, all right, we're good with the blessing of Arbitrum and optimism, taking dollars and tens of dollars of fees to 60 cents and 40 cents and 10 cents and 6 cents. We've been good. But to whom does 0.0002 matter? To the big players, right? But when a project is getting up off the ground, sees a lot of users, they can also, other dApps like the tokenized gold, precious metals, I don't know what the dApps are going to look like, real estate, and they're seeing users on that thing, then they will come. Other projects will come. They're not coming because of one thing. They're not coming because of one thing. There has to be stuff there. There has to be energy. There has to be active, engaged users. those interested in tokenized real estate, those interested in tokenized gold and other commodities. Right? So let me read this one again. It says, if even 1% of Hidden Row's let me read that from the beginning. Hidden Row's 300 plus clients, which includes hedge funds and banks and market makers, could interact with the RWAs, dApps on the XRPL, especially if Ripple integrates tokenized assets into its settlement pipeline. And again, why wouldn't they? If even 1% of Hidden Row's 3 trillion in volume, which is 30 billion, involves XRP for RWA trades, it could create substantial demand. So substantial. For context, says Grock, 30 billion in annual XRP transactions, assuming low velocity, could push XRP's price to $5 to $10. Now, we all know that the $5 to $10 can come in a speculative market. This is why Grock said $5 to $10 for this case, but it said the speculative price was $28.55. And this is per some analyst models. Okay. Examples of RWA dApps and their impact. A dApp like Tether Gold, built on the XRPL, could let users buy, trade, or redeem tokenized gold backed by physical bullion. I heard Upholder's doing something similar to this right now. Demand for XRP could come from transaction fees for buying and selling gold. XRP is a bridge for gold to fiat stablecoin trades. Potential use of XRP as collateral in gold-backed lending. I'm fairly certain, I'm about 90% certain that the central bank is going to come out with some form of a stablecoin backed by gold, or some country is going to do it. Stablecoin backed by gold. I think that is inevitable. If the dApp processes $1 billion in annual trades, 10% settle via XRP, 100 million, this could require millions of XRP for liquidity, assuming efficient bridging. Then he's talking about the tokenized real estate as another example. Yep. Tokenizing property, i.e. fractional ownership of commercial buildings, could attract retail and institutional investors. XRP demand would arise from fees for fractional share trades. You know, gives these examples. Other RWAs, bonds, commodities, carbon credits, just giving examples, right? If 100 institutions trade 10 billion in tokenized bonds annually, with XRP bridging 2%, 200 million, it could create meaningful demand. Challenges and limitations. While feasible, there are hurdles that could limit XRP's demand for RWA dApps, stablecoin preference, competition of other blockchains, adoption pace. Important. Now, competition, he brought up BlackRock and the competition. Ripple's Hidden Row's acquisition helps, but Ethereum's 1 trillion in tokenized assets, i.e. BlackRock's BITO, sets a high bar. So understand, right? We got to understand the good and the bad. Expectations, possible hurdles. Velocity problems. I want you guys to listen to this one. This is important. Velocity problem. High XRP velocity, i.e. used and sold instantly for settlements. Remember that used to be that Ripple tried to promote that as a feature, not as a bug. So velocity problem, high XRP velocity, could suppress the price growth despite transaction volume. Could suppress price growth despite transaction volume. Demand would require XRP to be held or locked, i.e. in DeFi pools or collateral. Demand would require XRP to be held or locked. Mickey B. Fresh has been saying this almost from day one. He calls it storage demand. Demand would require XRP to be held or locked, i.e. in some DeFi pools or collateral. I've been saying it all the time. I believe we're going to get more adoption when Ripple decides to have a liquidity incentive event and incentivize people to participate in liquidity pools on the ledger. Solution: dApps that incentivize holding XRP, staking rewards, collateral requirements could reduce the velocity. Private versus the public XRPL. Okay. Why XRPL is well positioned for RWAs? You're correct. The XRPL is primed for RWA tokenization. Before I read that, let me welcome some more people into the stream here real quick. What's going on, Alex G? How are you, my friend? Appreciate you guys checking in. Todd Sellers is in the building. What up? What up? Might not always comment, but always watch and listen to CJ. Thank you, Todd. What's going on, bro? How are you, brother? Jungling's in the building. What's up going on, Jungle? I feel like Ripple doing anything of substance would be big. Anything successful beyond selling. That's right. Beyond selling that XRP. Yes, sir. Seems like we are getting there. Home-based income 101. What's going on, miss? How are you? Hello, Crypto Seeds. Long time. We are still hanging in. Indeed. What's going on, Crawfish? How are you, bro? Alex Eats says, am I late? Nah, bro. You're right on time, brother. You're always right on time. KD Crypto says, PAX G is backed by gold. The PAX G stablecoin. Yep. Indeed. Indeed. All right, let me get back to, I'm telling this back and forth, Jungle. And with Grock, it's good stuff. I posted Grock's thoughts on our back and forth. I posted that. But I'm going to do a thread tomorrow. I'm going to share it with you guys, but I'm going to post a thread tomorrow. So I already put together on our back and forth. It's pretty phenomenal. It really was. But it was great to get Grock's thought on our back and forth. That was really, really good. Jungle says, loving the combo. Thank you, bro. All right, so why the XRPL is well positioned for RWAs. You're correct that the XRPL is primed for RWA tokenization due to the speed and costs, right? 3 to 5 second settlement, 100, 1,000. I don't know what that is. 0.002 fees. I know it's less than a penny. Fees beat Ethereum and Bitcoin for high frequency trades. Institutional access. Hit and rose 300 plus clients and 3 trillion volume provides a ready market for RWA dApps. A ready market. Jungle, what's the name of the real estate? Is it real estate on the XRPL? I think they're tokenizing. Are they tokenizing the mortgages? The escrow? They're tokenizing something. It's on the XRPL. I forget the name of the company. Right? So institutional access. Hidden Road's 300 plus clients and 3 trillion volume provide a ready market for RWA dApps. Right? And that will be the ones on the XRPL. Right? A ready market. Features. The XRPL's AMM, decentralized exchange, the DEX, and support for tokenized assets via issued currencies make it ideal for RWAs. They must have been going through a lot of, Grock must have been going through a lot of Axelar's posts because that's Axelar keeps saying that. Right? They keep saying it. They think that the XRP is well positioned to be the hub for RWAs. It says the upcoming EVM sidechain could also attract Ethereum compatible dApps. Well, how about that? I didn't read this part. This is a conversation back and forth between me and Grock. If you share your thoughts, it will continue conversations. It really does a great job. All right, so regulatory clarity, Ripple's SEC lawsuit resolution, we get it. Trump's pro crypto, we get it. Ripple's push. It says Ripple's 1.25 billion Hidden Road acquisition and the Ripple dollar launch signal a focus on institutional DeFi with the XRPL as the backbone. David Schwartz, CTO, has highlighted XRPL's potential for tokenized RWAs, suggesting strategic intent. All right, so again, we're not close to the end of this whole thing, which I think you're going to love, because I keep asking questions. Quantifying potential XRP demand. It's tough to predict exact demand without data on the dApp adoption. Not one player, A bunch of dApps, certainly more than what we got right now. But let's sketch a scenario. Assumption, 5 RWAs. Is that a lot? They really have 2 or 3 already. They got 2 or 3 golds already, just waiting for this chance to get on this XRPL. They got 2 or 3 golds. I don't remember the names, but it's 2 or 3 of them already. There's a certain real estate play already. I don't know about the bond thing. I don't know. All right, so assumption, 5 RWA dApps launch on the XRPL in 2025, each processing 1 billion in annual trades. Okay, that's an assumption by Grock. Transaction fees. If each dApp generates 10 million transactions per year, which is 50 million total, at 0.0002 of a penny per XRP, that's 10,000 in fees. That's not, that's okay, right? So 5,400 XRP at $1.85 divided by, per XRP. This is modest, but grows with scale. Modest. Again, this is Grock's assumption and its little scenario. Bridging liquidity. If 5% of the 5 billion total volume, $250 million, uses XRP for bridging, and XRP is held briefly, low velocity, it could require millions of XRP, for example. $250 million, $135 million in XRP in annual demand. Okay. If locked in DeFi or collateral, this could reduce circulating supply, which is currently 56 billion. Price impact, if 1% of hidden rolls 3 trillion, which is 30 billion, uses XRP for RWA trades, and velocity is low. Remember, the high velocity was the thing that Ripple used to push because everyone was pushing at Ripple about volatility. So Ripple's pushback was, well, you're only gonna you're using it for like a second. You're using it only for like 3 seconds. That's what they call high velocity. But price appreciation comes from low velocity, aka storage demand. Locking stuff up, staking, all that kind of stuff, right? Price impact. If 1% of hidden rows 3 trillion volume uses XRP for RWA trades and velocity is low, analysts estimate XRP can reach $5 to $10. Now, we all know that we don't need hidden row to get the $5 to $10. But Jungle, you missed it. But early in this, me reading here, it said the $5 to $10, but it put in parentheses $28 to $55 speculative market. So combining hidden road and its possibilities in a speculative market. It said 28 to 55, $28.55. Right? Speculative could be anything. You can get into some kind of announcement and hidden roads, blah blah blah, client does the blah 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 on the XRPL. You just take one of those 300. What if it's 2 of those 300? What if it's 3? Hooking up with Glint Pay. I don't know which one it's going to be. Right, one of them gold things to do the. Or you see XRPL slant Pax gold, slant Glint Pay gold, slant some other gold thing in a liquidity pair. You see a gold, a money market dApp on the XRPL where you can lend XRP, borrow stables, borrow gold. I don't know. That's why we ask on the channel, who's going to be the Aave on the XRPL? The prime broker's cool. That's the institution, though. Who's going to be the retail Aave on the XRPL? That's what I want to see. So let me read. Price impact, if 1%, blah, 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 and velocity is low, analysts estimate $5 to $10. RWA dApps could contribute a fraction of this with broader adoption, driving exponential growth per Metcalfe's law. Critical perspective. One of these was challenging some Ripple. They were challenging Ripple, the company, in one of these things. It's like Ripple need to make sure they get their act together. This is Grock saying that, by the way. We're going to get to it. Critical perspective. The bullish case assumes, Jungle, Ripple prioritizes XRP over Ripple dollar. The bullish case assumes Ripple prioritizes XRP over the Ripple dollar and that RWA dApps gain traction. I'm not so sure about that first one because all I'm hearing from Brad and Monica Long is the Ripple dollar and the Ripple dollar and the Ripple dollar. I don't see a priority with XRP, but we shall see. It says, however, speculative nature, most projections, i.e. $5 to $10 per XRP, rely on optimistic adoption and low velocity. If dApps flop or the Ripple dollar dominates, demand could underwhelm. Market sentiment hasn't surged, reflecting skepticism. Got it. Ripple's strategy. Ripple's focus on the Ripple dollar for collateral could sideline XRP. Unless dApps, other projects, besides what Ripple's doing, explicitly integrated for bridging or DeFi. Even Grock knows that Ripple, the company, is leaning more in to the Ripple dollar than XRP. Ripple is leaning into that. Doesn't mean the people working with the EZA app and all those developers over there building stuff on the XRPL are doing that. But Ripple. Again, I'm reading it again. This is from Grock. There's other stuff, by the way, where Grock's kind of going in a little bit on Ripple. And AI. All right. Anyway, Ripple's focus on the Ripple dollar for collateral could sideline XRP unless other dApps explicitly integrated for bridging or DeFi. I've been telling you guys this DeFi is the one. All right, so this is Grock's thought on our conversation back and forth. This is Grock's thoughts on our conversation back and forth. Your thinking is sound. XRPL's positioning for RWAs combined with Metcalfe's law, we talk about it on the channel all the time, Jungle, going up and to the right of the network adoption curve, suggests that successful RWA dApps could drive XRP demand. A tokenized gold dApp or similar useful dApps like real estate or bonds could create demand through transaction fees, liquidity bridging, DeFi and collateral, which is locking XRP in protocols. This is why I've been saying the last week or so that it feels like to me that Flare Networks is further along in the pursuit of providing value to XRP holders than Ripple. Network effects, where more dApps and users amplify XRPL's value. Now, I will have to note that I've been seeing a couple of things about staking coming out of this Paris blockchain thing, and it ain't Flare Network. So who is that providing this XRP staking? Is it some form of Doppler finance? I don't know. I'm not excited about Doppler. Not right now, not in current phase, not in its current stage. Not excited about it. All right, so let me read on. It says network effects, where more dApps and users amplify XRPL's value. More dApps. Like, for example, Flare Networks has 5, 6, 7 useful dApps for retail and institution. If I can go 3, 4, 5 places with my valuable asset and have useful things to do that increase my net worth, that's what people want. Grock goes on to share his thoughts. The Hidden Road acquisition amplifies this potential by exposing the XRPL to institutional players who could adopt RWA dApps for tokenized assets. However, the demand isn't guaranteed. It hinges on adoption. dApps must attract users, retail and institutional, to scale transactions. XRP integration. dApps must use XRP for bridging, collateral, or DeFi, not just the Ripple dollar or other assets. Market dynamics. Low velocity and reduced supply by way of locking and staking are needed for price impacts. It says here, you're not missing anything critical, but you might consider the time horizon. RWA adoption is nascent. Global tokenized assets are 10 billion versus 1 trillion in traditional markets. If the XRPL captures even 1% of 100 billion RWA market by 2027, with XRP facilitating 10% of those trades, it could drive significant demand, 2027. Short term, expect modest impact. Long term, Metcalfe's law could kick in as dApps proliferate. Right? I said, okay, this is again, I'm trying to get more stuff, trying to further this conversation. I say velocity problem, and I copy what it said about the velocity problem and solutions. dApps that incentivize holding XRP staking risk. I said, so I copied its post, and I said, yes, this is what I have been saying. Creating storage demand, quote unquote, of XRP is the killer use case, in my opinion. Grock says you're absolutely on point with identifying storage demand as a killer use case for XRP to address the velocity problem and drive meaningful growth, meaningful price growth. By focusing on mechanisms that incentivize holding or locking XRP, i.e. in DeFi, pools, staking rewards, or collateral, you are zeroing in on a critical dynamic that could amplify XRP's value beyond transactional use. Let's unpack why this is compelling, how RWA dApps could create storage demand, and whether this aligns with XRPL's trajectory, especially in light of your belief that this is the key to unlocking XRP's potential. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then it talks about what velocity means. Velocity refers to how quickly a crypto like XRP changes hands. High velocity, i.e. XRP is used for settlements and sold immediately, means more transactions, but less, excuse me, less price impact, as the asset isn't held long enough to reduce circulating supply or create scarcity for XRP. Current velocity, XRP's primary use case, cross-border payments, liquidity bridging, often involves quick buy, use, sell cycles, especially in Ripple's on-demand liquidity. I've heard Jungle talk about this on numerous occasions. This keeps velocity high, suppressing the price despite high transaction volume. You understand? So every time Monica Long uninspiringly mentions We use XRP and ODL. Okay. What does it really mean, though? I don't know if you saw that, Jungle. Did you see that little announcement from Monica Long when she was being interviewed? I'm being kind when I say uninspiring. When he brought up, the interviewer brought up XRPL as opposed to the Ripple dollar. Uninspired. Anyway, storage demand. By incentivizing holding or locking XRP, again, DeFi, collateral, or staking, you reduce velocity, decrease circulating supply, and create buy pressure. This is akin to Bitcoin's HODL culture or Ethereum's staking, where assets are removed from circulation, driving scarcity. Your insight that dApps creating storage demand is the killer use case targets this directly. If RWA dApps on XRPL incentivize holding XRP, they could transform it from a high velocity transactional token to a low velocity store value, amplifying demand and price. I'm going to welcome some more people to the stream before I go on here. The strategist. What's going on? What's going on? The strategist. Nice. Jungle said I was listening. Awesome. If the Ripple dollar is better than XRP, then someone else would use a stable to beat them anyway. That's right. That's exactly right. What's going on, Keyless? Good evening and happy Good Friday again, everyone. Hey, Keyless, how are you? Did I miss anyone checking in? Right? And it's really not, guys, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you didn't get a chance to do so on the way, and no worries, just collapse the chat real quick, go smash the like, and then come back and hang out with the crypto fam, the crypto and fam. Did I miss Crypto Eddie checking in? Oh, there she is. Oh, what's going on, Eddie? How are you? Appreciate you being here. So look, this is what I get from Ripple. Well, you know, if the situation requires it, if it requires the XRP, if it's if that's the thing that's needed, even Grock said Ripple is leaning in more so on the Ripple dollar than it is leaning in on XRP. That doesn't mean that it's not leaning in on XRP. I'm telling you, Crypto Eddie, that thing from Monica Long, that little announcement with that dude interviewing, I think this dude has interviewed people from Ripple before, was uninspiring. And I posted on Schwartz's page, and I think Garlinghouse is like, you already got a use case. You've already decided the Ripple dollars collateral. You, you already made that move. What about XRP? But anyhow, my back and forth with Grock was very interesting, Eddie. Very, very interesting. That's right. It was not convincing at all. I used the word uninspiring just to be kind. Like she was struggling. Well, they do have the 10 XRP requirement when to open a wallet. Like, what? You brought up the wallet? You brought up in the public and in front of a bunch of people. You brought up the fact that you got to have some XRP to open a wallet. That's it. That's what you got. That's what you got for me. Oh, open a wallet creation? Oh, not great. Not great, Monica. Not great. Surely you had to know people were going to ask that. Come on, miss. Surely you had to know people were going to ask that. Anyway, I digress. All right. So why storage demand is a game changer? I brought this to Grock's attention. I said I think this is the killer use case. Got to create demand for the native asset. Jungle knows, I've been saying in every live stream. You got to create demand for the native asset. And one institution don't mean that's because it's doing 3 trillion. That doesn't equate to creating demand for XRP. It just doesn't. But yesterday morning, or this morning, and late last night, I began thinking about BlackRock and its tokenization. This is how we got to this conversation with Grock. I was thinking of, like, BlackRock keeps talking about the tokenization of everything, And Ripple keeps talking about the tokenization of RWAs. And the XRPL is just here doing what it does, moving anything of value in 3 to 5 seconds for less than a penny. Tokenized real estate, tokenized bonds, tokenized treasuries, tokenized gold, any kind of RWA thing that may come to the XRPL. And that got me thinking, that is where the demand could come from. Not making Hidden Road a bigger prime broker. I'm not interested in making Hidden Road a bigger prime broker. Why? I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that. I want to know about the Aave of the XRPL. Who is it? When is that coming? The Uniswap V4 of the XRPL. Who is it? When is it coming? Tell me that you come up with, please, for the love of God, tell me that you've come up with a similar and hopefully better liquidity incentive event than Flare Networks. Surely you've come up with something. All right, storage demand aligns with Metcalfe's law, which you mentioned, as it increases the XRP's network's value by reducing the supply, locking XRP in DeFi pools, collateral, or staking reduces the 56 billion circulating supply. This is why I've been saying on the channel for about a week or so. It looks like Flare Networks is closer to providing value for XRP holders than Ripple. I think this morning I heard about some XRP staking presentation that wasn't by Flare Networks. So who was that? Who was that? Again, it feels like that Flare Networks is closer to bringing value to XRP holders than Ripple. All right, I read the reducing supply. Increasing utility. XRP becomes integral to dApp ecosystem, tokenized gold, real estate, etc., making it a must-hold asset for users and institutions. I wonder if we're ever going to get to that must-hold scenario. Driving network effects. More dApps, more, not just one little thing, not just one little prime broker. More dApps and locked XRP attract more users, developers, and institutions, exponentially growing XRPL's value. Driving network effects. This is why we say on the channel all the time, we need the XRPL to go up and to the right of the network adoption curve. More dApps equals locked XRP, attracting more users and developers and institutions, which could exponentially grow the XRPL's value. This is especially relevant with Ripple's Hidden Road acquisition, which exposes the XRPL to 300 plus institutional clients and 3 trillion in annual clearing volume. If RWA dApps leverage this pipeline to lock XRP, the impact could be significant. This was the thing that I was trying to figure out that I was missing. BlackRock's tokenization of everything, Ripple talking about that the XRPL being the tokenization hub. You got this XRPL. What's gonna be that thing? What's gonna be that thing? And I'm thinking out loud, we need more dApps. We need more things that people can use. What Grock is suggesting is that combination that the dApps, these projects come in, institutions might be interested in tapping into some of that. The 300 plus clients might be interested in tapping into some of this, the RWA stuff. You see what I'm saying, Jungle? This is what Grock is suggesting. That these 300 plus clients, by the way, I didn't know. Did you guys know that Hidden Road was integrated into Coinbase and OKX? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Maybe I missed it. So that's where it is. That's what I was missing. We need some more programmability on XRPL for these tokenized gold dApps and these tokenized real estate dApps and these tokenized treasuries and these tokenized bonds and whatever else is going to be tokenized to be able to get on an XRPL. Grock mentioned the XRPL EVM sidechain possibly attracting developers to the XRPL. But they got to have a reason to come. They have to have a reason to come. How the RWA dApps could create storage demand for XRP, RWA dApps are ideal for RWA dApps are ideal for creating storage demand because they bridge institutional finance and DeFi, requiring assets for collateral, liquidity, and yield. Here's how they could incentivize holding XRP. DeFi pools, hello. I've been yelling at David Schwartz. When liquidity incentive event. Mechanism. It says DeFi pools and liquidity provision. The mechanism, the XRPL's automated market maker launched in 2024. Allows users to provide liquidity to pools, i.e. the XRP and the Ripple dollar, the XRP tokenized gold liquidity pair. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Users stake quote unquote XRP in these pools. We know it's not staking. Stake XRP in these pools and earn trading fees or rewards. Storage demand. XRP is locked in pools for extended periods, reducing circulating supply. For example, a tokenized gold dApp offers XRP and a gold pair with 5% APY. If 1 million XRP at $1.85, million at $1 per XRP is staked by users, that's 1 million XRP off the market. If 10 RWA dApps each lock 1 million XRP, that's 10 million XRP. With 0.01 of its circulating supply. With broader adoption, this could scale to hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of XRP. Well, this says this could scale to hundreds of millions. So I'm thinking that's XRP locked. Instead of 1 million locked, it's now 10 million locked. Instead of 10 million locked, it could scale to hundreds of millions of XRP locked. Impact. Locked XRP lowers the velocity and rewards incentivized long-term holding. And I always say that, you know, that XRP, that beloved XRP of yours on that ledger, and I joke and I say, do you got $50? Surely you can let go of the death grip of $50 and get into some liquidity pools. Anyhow, Locked XRP lowest velocity and rewards incentivize long-term holding, creating buy pressure. Collateral for these RWA trades or loans. RWA dApps could require XRP as collateral for trading tokenized assets or borrowing against them. For instance, a tokenized gold dApp lets users borrow the Ripple dollar against gold, but requires 10% of the loan value in XRP as collateral. That's just an example from Grock. Hidden Road's prime brokerage could use, Ripple owns it now, right? Hidden Road's prime brokerage could use XRP as collateral for institutional trades. Right now, Ripple has decided that's the Ripple dollar for collateral. Anyway, it says, Grock goes on to say, especially for cross-asset margin requirements. Storage demand, XRP is locked for the duration of the loan or trade. An example, if 100 institutions each lock 100,000 XRP for margin trading, that's 10 million XRP off the market. A retail-focused gold dApp with 10,000 users locking 100 XRP each removes a million. These are examples. Impact, collateral requirements tie up XRP, reducing velocity and signaling demand to markets. Staking rewards for governance or yield, we get it. Reserve assets for tokenized RWAs. dApps could hold XRP as a reserve asset to back tokenized RWAs or ensure liquidity. For example, a tokenized gold dApp holds 10% of its gold value in XRP to facilitate redemptions or swaps. Hidden Road settlement pipeline could require XRP for reserves for RWA trades. I hope Ripple is listening, especially Monica. Storage demand. If a gold dApp with 100 million in tokenized assets hold 10% in XRP, that's 5.4 million XRP locked. I know, but look, she's the president. She's not a worker bee. She's not an intern. She's the president. She should have been more prepared with a better answer than that. All right, so reserves reduce circulating supply and signal institutional confidence in XRP. It's got some hybrid models. These are great examples. The feasibility and XRPL's positioning. Your belief that storage demand is the killer use case is well aligned with the XRPL strength and Ripple strategy. The XRPL features, the AMM DEX issued currencies, support DeFi and tokenized RWAs, enabling dApps to integrate XRP for liquidity, collateral, or staking. The upcoming EVM sidechain could attract more developers, boosting dApp creation. This is Grock telling me this. Awesome. Hidden Road acquisition, the 100 settlement. Okay, great. Get that. Institutional appeal. That's a big one. I know a lot of people don't think it is, but it's a big one. They're making that blockchain, they're making that thing regulatory pretty. And, got the deep freeze thing going on as well. Yeah, they're making that blockchain regulatory pretty. Develop an ecosystem. Ripple's $250 million XRPL fund. Anyway, Wave 8 in 2024. Incentivize RWA dApps, increasing the likelihood of storage-focused design. That's generous. We'll see. A tokenized gold dApp example. A dApp tokenizes 500 million in gold, offering trading, lending, and liquidity pools. That's the setup. Storage demand, fees, 10 million in fees, liquidity pools, collateral, reserves, total. 16 million XRP lock, reducing, I got it. Impact. If 10 similar dApps launch, 165 million XRP, creating scarcity, could be locked, creating scarcity and buy pressure. Yeah, more dApps. What I missed was combining the RWA dApps with these institutions, drive to participate there. There could be a synergy. Challenges to the storage demand. The Ripple dollar dominance. Because Grock says, while promising, there are risks. Ripple dollar dominance. If the dApps prioritize the Ripple dollar for collateral or reserves, XRP's role could be limited to fees, which don't lock enough XRP to move the needle. Adoption lag. The RWA dApps need scale for meaningful lockup. The tokenized RWA market is 10 billion globally. XRPL must capture a sizable share. What's the expected? Brad keeps talking about the RWA, potential in 2027 or 2030, right? So it's going to be greater than 10 bill. Competition. Ethereum and Solana offer robust DeFi ecosystem. The XRPL's lower fees and hidden rows network are advantages, but dApp quality matters. Velocity trade-off. Even with locking, some XRP will be used transactionally for bridging, for example, maintaining high velocity unless lockups dominate. Developer incentives. This is from Grock. dApps must be designed to prioritize XRP over stablecoins or other assets, requiring Ripple's guidance or grants. So we all know about that. So it's given some more scenarios here. I think that's awesome. Then it gives its final thoughts. It's further final thoughts from Grock because we furthered our conversation. And this is what it said. Your focus on storage demand as the killer use case is a sharp insight. It directly tackles XRP's velocity problem and leverages the XRPL's RWA potential. RWA per te dApps, I don't know what that means. Tokenized gold, real estate bonds, etc., are perfect vehicles for this because they require collateral and liquidity, locking XRP in DeFi or trading. They attract institutional users via hidden road who could lock large XRP volume. Benefits from Metcalfe's law as more dApps and users grow the XRPL value. The hidden road acquisition amplifies this by embedding XRPL into institutional workflows, potentially locking millions of XRP if dApps integrate storage mechanisms. Your tokenized gold dApp example is spot on. Gold stability and institutional appeal make it a prime candidate for lockup via pools, collateral, or reserves. I mentioned earlier about Paul Barron, just recently interviewing today the guy from the gold and silver guy, Andy Schechtman, I believe. And they're talking about they're going to be on a panel. He's going to be moderating this panel. And what is that about? Is that the Australia event? The Gold Coast event for the XRPL and developers? Eddie, is that what that is? Probably. Kind of like a pool. All right. So your tokenized gold dApp example is spot on. Gold stability and institutional appeal make it a prime candidate for lockup via pools, collateral, or reserves. However, this is important to note. I appreciate you guys being and sticking with me all the way through here. It says, however, success depends on Ripple's execution. Listen to this. Ripple must incentivize dApps to prioritize XRP over the Ripple dollar for lockup use cases. That's exactly like saying, David Schwartz, when liquidity incentive event. That's exactly what that is saying. Adoption scale. dApps need 100,000 plus users or $1 billion in assets to lock meaningful XRP. Then he talks about the market sentiment. But I do love uh how it mentioned that. Why is it this is not what I want? All right, so market sentiment. All right, there it is. So you're not just thinking correctly, you're ahead of the curve by focusing on storage demand. This could be the XRPL's path to transforming XRP into a low velocity, high value asset like staked ETH or Bitcoin held by hodlers. It tells me some next steps here. You want to track the dApp launches, watch Ripple's XRPL grants, or Hidden Rows integration for RWA dApps with storage mechanisms, the AMM pools, and collateral rules. So anyway, there it is. And I'm going to post this here, a little thread of that tomorrow. But that's a very interesting, very interesting back and forth. Is it one XRP now? It's down to one XRP, right? So I think that's worse that she even brought that up. That is down to one XRP for it to create in a wallet, and that was the use case that she was. Anyhow, guys, do me a favor, hit that like button. That'd be really cool. We always like to have just as many likes as we got viewers in the stream. It's my thoughts on Hidden Road, Ripple's acquisition of Hidden Road, Ripple's play on the tokenization of RWAs on the XRPL. What does that mean in terms of creating demand for the XRP? Because I have been struggling with how are we creating demand for the native asset of the XRPL? So Grock is essentially saying that the play is the 300 institutions and the RWA dApps and them kind of working in synergy or commingling, if you will. Not real, don't get themselves in trouble commingling, but these institutions could be tapping into these RWAs. But in the end, we need more dApps, right? We don't need one tokenized gold dApp, but it'd be nice to have one. I know there's two on the block. We need a real estate dApp. We need a gold dApp. We need a treasury bond, a treasury and a bond, right? We need them all because the XRPL can handle it. And you have to have DeFi. You have to have it. You gotta have DeFi. Grock stated XRP and some tokenized gold asset in the liquidity pair. XRP slant this, XRP slant that, XRP slant this, XRP slant that. Create demand for the native asset of the blockchain. That is the goal. That's the goal. Eddie says if they get thousands of pairs in the automated market maker, there's a shot of bridging on the DEX. Auto bridging, but as BET said, it's not there yet. As Vet said, yeah, it's not. It's not there yet. Hi. Alex Sheet says Ripple's focus never been on the XRP price. It's always been on developing their inner tech and growing as a company. Yes, that's correct. That's why, Brad Garlinghouse's post about making Hidden Road bigger and better. Yeah. So there it is. Grock and I's conversation back and forth. Again, I'm going to post a thread tomorrow in the morning. I posted the thoughts, the second set of thoughts that Grock had about our conversation. I already posted that on X. If you want to check that out, at crypto_CEEJ, you can do that there. But it was an interesting back and forth. So it cleared up some things for me. It shared some promise for sure. But again, again, Grock says, hey, you may be thinking a little too short term. This is Grock said to me. Grock said this to me. You may be thinking a little too short term. Think long term. Right? Yeah, I thought you ordered those. Think longer term. This is why I say I believe in terms of adding value to XRP holders that Flare Networks is further along in that pursuit. FXRP, like liquid XRP, XRP staking. Mm-hmm. That type of thing. Further along, in my view. But so that's a good back and forth. It opened my eyes to that possible synergy between Hidden Roads and these RWAs, because Ripple is focused on RWAs tokenization on the XRPL, right? We know we've heard of a couple of announcements of gold dApps going to be on the XRPL. We've heard of one or two real estate. And by the way, Grock brought up the potential of the XRPL EVM potentially bringing in developers onto the XRPL. They're going to need some programmability to get it done, or at least more programmability. So it was a good back and forth. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was, again, I'm going to put the thread of his second thoughts, but it's going to be more of him and I in the thread, kind of going back and forth in the thread. I'll post that tomorrow for you guys. Grock says don't post too much at one time. So I'll post that in the morning. But my first post on the first set of thoughts from Grock is on X, my profile at crypto_CEJ is all lowercase. Appreciate you guys being here. Hope that was a great back and forth for you. My storage demand thing and thought process came from Mickey B. Fresh, just to let you know. Way back yonder when he and I would talk. Yeah, he was the one who turned me on to that and what that's going to mean. So shout out to Mickey B. Fresh. I hope you're doing well, bro. I appreciate you. All right, fam, there it is. Thank you so much for hanging out, guys. Do me a favor. If you didn't hit the like button on the way in, please do so on the way out. It's one of the greatest ways to support the channel. I appreciate you guys. And if you happen to be in that 55% or so of people that are hanging out, listening to and watching the Crypto Siege, do me a favor. If you've been enjoying those hangouts, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're in a mad dash to get to 9,000 subs this month, and I know we can get there, especially with your help. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you know whenever we go live or whenever we upload a video. I'm going to end this one like I do all my videos and remind you guys of this. Old money doesn't want you to win. But that's okay, though, because you and I, we're already winning. Oh, you know what? Let me do this real quick. I forgot to share this. The old money merch is out. I forgot to share that. The old money merch is out. It is available. I'm going to leave the link here. You can get the old money t-shirts, these like hoodies, hat. You can get the unisex version. You can get with my name on it if you like, or with my name not on it. And it comes in different colors. Let me highlight this one here real quick. Old money doesn't want you to win. It's a movement. We're going to start that movement I promise you, it's going to be cool. So this is the black one. This is the red one. I like this red. I think that red is fire. This is heavy metal. This is military green. I just think you just get some nice camo. You could do the whole camo thing here. It'd be awesome look. And there's the dark chocolate, which is interesting. But let me share the link here. It'll be in the description as well. The old money merch. Finally got that person to get this going. So do me a favor, hit the like button on the way out. It'd be super, super awesome. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you've been enjoying these hangouts. Listen, old money doesn't want you to win. That's okay. Because you and I, we're already winning. And I would ask you to consider this or perhaps ponder the idea or notion of living your life permissionless. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.